Good afternoon all, and I'd like to welcome you to our afternoon session of Take Good Care of Your Essential IP Network and Services with Automated DDI even. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Ed Daniel from Efficient IP to take you through his presentation this afternoon. Any questions, if you can post them in the live Q&A, and we'll get to them at the end. Over to you, Ed.
Thank you, Paul. So we're going to talk about essentially the concept of automation, how it's pertaining to DDI. I'm a solution architect at Efficient IP, been with them for about 3.5 years now. Next slide, please, Paul. Fiona. So just as really a bit of just a high level, not going to hit you with too much marketing, but I mean, these are the key things where companies that you might recognize there have been working with us. So improving efficiency, reducing risks, lowering costs are key things that we're trying to help address in terms of you managing your infrastructure. Very proud to mention that we have some of the universities in the UK who are customers, such as Manchester Metropolitan, University of East Anglia, University of Strathclyde, University of Portsmouth, Leeds, De Montfort. So you're in good company with some people who've already chosen to work with us to help them with automating their DDI infrastructure. Next slide, please. So the challenges ahead. This is good fun. This is a short slide. Next slide, please. So again, I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but hopefully you can feel that we're empathizing with your challenges. Just when we thought we might have got control of our DCs, then of course everything started to get all elastic with compute, with storage, and now with software-defined networking. And it's been playing catch up, trying to essentially manage these a variety of infrastructures, whether it's on-prem, hybrid, cloud, and even down to the DDI scenario. We're now having to make sure that we can manage IPAMs that span multiple different deployment platforms. So if you're not already doing this, then you know probably the hardest thing is just the standardization. How do you unify all this? How do you get stuff into a single environment and then be able to observe it and put some control around it? So it's quite a lot of work. Next slide, please. So this is, hey, let's talk a bit about Efficient IP and what we're trying to do to sort of solve those problems. And yes, we're IPv6 ready. Next slide, please. So it's buzzwordy, yes, single pane of glass, but probably the more pragmatic view. You know, it's getting everything out of silos into a single repository is not so bad. I'm not talking about taking a load of silos and putting them in one silo. What we're trying to do here is ensure that you've got the ability to apply DDI processes, behaviors, controls in a single way across multiple different architectures through a single pane of glass. Next slide, please. So what we now have is a scenario that so Gartner's actually finally jumped on the bandwagon just of recent. They've come out with this is their acronym, Network Source of Truth. Okay, so if you haven't heard it before, you probably hear about it a bit more in the coming years. So from my side, working with Efficient IP, one of the things that I noticed was happening in the 3 years that I've been here was that we saw the value that we were creating in terms of the DDI metadata, the event data, how that was influencing other solutions. So whether it was like a ServiceNow kind of scenario, operational support, billing systems for some of our service provider customers. And then security policy orchestration was getting very interesting, and zero trust was becoming interesting. And people were saying, how can we be, responding to sort of, events coming out of your DHCP that could influence firewall policies, or when, policies have been created for a new campus, it cascades down security first kind of design, all these things. So if you didn't have this piece in control, you were missing out on all these cool things we're now doing with automation. Next slide, please. So of course, the idea is, of course, it's not that it's just all about, glue code and putting stuff together. The idea is that once you have an environment, that you're then able to start doing things. We could even say, the why. You could annotate, sort of the wizards that we're using to capture data and enforce policy. Naming conventions could also have a box saying, why are you making this change? It's up to you. You can extend the data now because it's now back in that single repository. You can annotate it with confidence because it's your network source of truth. Next slide, please. So yes, so just a bit of a pause. So I'm kind of talking about what we're doing, but of course, having those controls that we were talking about earlier is going to allow us to automate these core network services. Next slide, please. This is one of my favorite slides that I like to share. That basically takes a 2D slice from potentially a 3D environment. You can have multiple DHCP services, multiple DNS services, multiple IP plans. But the point is, what we're trying to show here is that when you're driving the network source of truth from the IPAM, one of these has to rule the roost. B, D, or I, and we chose I. But by having that model, that then pushes those configurations out to the associated services, and you'll see down there that when a subnet is being, a scope is being created. But what we're trying to highlight, I don't have my cursor to go over it, but right down there at the bottom where you see a lease is granted, it's updating the IP address in the IPAM, and also the IPAM is updating the DNS with its resource record and its PTR. Automated. Having that as a basic thing for your DDI, if your DDI is automated this way, you can start to build on top of it. And with that, I believe, next slide, I got you a demo. It doesn't take too long, it's 4 minutes. So time for me to share a screen. Okay, one moment, please. Make sure I have to go back to the beginning. Right. So just allow me, obviously, demo gods, I thought better to record it than actually do it in case anything broke. But I'll just take you very quickly through what this demo will show you. So here we have an IP plan, which we've called EIP test. It's in our IP plan spaces. What we're going to have a look at is that it's been associated to a smart DNS model. We've called WinDNS Smart there. Same likewise a DHCP cluster, these are basically our smart architectures managing Microsoft services, by the way. And there's some domains that are associated with that DNS. So that association is then already built so that when we're now creating an IP plan, for example, a pre-created network there, the /16, which has a set of addresses, we've also decided to create a pool, and we call it the DHCP leases, just to help me remember what it is, but there it is. That's essentially already still just in the IPAM, and you can see it's been reserved. Great. And then the corresponding records have also been pushed into the Windows server. They were created there, so the scope was automatically created. There it is. And then, of course, as you remember, we had ranges, so that's from the pool that's been created. So that's going to be hosting the leases. This has all been automated for us. And then likewise in the DNS, we have the DNS server there, and we can see that we have their main domain records there, and then also our PTR just above there. So that's the scenario of the environment. Then you can see some interaction happening shortly. So back to the IPAM, we see there's nothing in the pool of leases. There's nothing there. And now with my magic, SSHing into a Windows box, I'm now going to request an IP on the VNIC that's connected to this subnet. It takes about 20 seconds. Forgive me for the pause. But the key is when it comes up, we'll see the IP address it was given by the Windows server that we're managing from our solution in the single pane of glass. There we are. So 5.1 is the magic IP. So now we go back to the UI, and of course, in the IPAM, there is the new lease that's been granted. It's been updated with its MAC address. We'll go and have a look and search. So this is like Google search for DDI in our solution. This is me being lazy, but you'll see the fun of it. So where do we know that MAC address is? So yes, it's in the DHCP lease there. We have the information on what server it was granted from and other pertinent information. And likewise, its entry in the IPAM. Splendid. Everything is automated, but I think we missed a step. And where are we going to go next? So it's just sort of looking at the whole network there, not just the discrete pool. So you can obviously see how it looks there as well. It's more of a UI demo, that bit there. Now that's the bit that we haven't yet actually looked at, of course, is the DNS. So let's take the FQDN. Makes sense to search on that. And where do we see that? Well, we see, so yes, it's associated in the IPAM. Yes, it's in the DNS. As you can see there in the right zone that we've associated with in that subnet. And likewise, the PTR has been created there. So as you can see, all the corresponding records that we were expecting to see have been deployed. I think my next trick is to get to the EIPtestzone.org, and we'll see down there. I also take off the filter that I was using when I was looking at the PTRs. And then down at the bottom there is the IP that has been automatically populated from the IPAM into the DNS. Fantastic. So in essence, the demo now goes into reverse, and we now see that when the IP is released, all this stuff should disappear. So here we go. We're going to kill the IP. We're saying don't want the IP anymore. So there we go. It's been released. You'll see just as I scroll up there, you'll see there's no IP address on Ethernet nor, but I did go a bit too quickly. I'm sorry. Anyhow, you see, there we go. Lease has gone. Now in there, you see in the DHCP, the lease has gone. And in the DNS, the A records and the PTR records have gone. There we are. Thank you very much for watching our quick demo of some orchestration of DDI. Right, back to the slides, please. Right, so with your DDI now working and responding as an integrated model, the fact that you have the ability to work with those models, you've then got the opportunity to start thinking, well, okay, why don't we align this to the way that we're running our business? So we've got common, that horrible acronym DRY, don't repeat yourself. If you think how many times you do the same thing over and over again in DDI, new rollout, change management, migration, hopefully not too much on the migration, it's a painful one, but even just simple change management as things come in, when you're upgrading a particular part of the network with new firewalls, how does everything else cascade down behind that in terms of process and managing all of that, the IPs that are going to be addressed for those, the switching, the routing, those kind of things. But after a while, you're going to see, well, we do this kind of regularly. This is kind of the setup. This is the model. We can maybe even integrate the whole sort of request on the DDI side, so that's automated. And we could have templates for particular things, whether it's a campus site, it's a student hall, it's a research laboratory. You start to align this DDI stuff with something that makes more sense, the stuff that you work with in the physical world, the customers that you look after, guest Wi-Fi locations, VIP locations if need be. And you can enforce the policies, and then you can go RBAC-tastic, whereas you can start to slice and dice this, and then you're no longer really having to have the infrastructure team overwhelmed by many support requests that actually can be resolved further upstream in terms of organizational change. You're just getting all the good stuff done once that's been agreed with the templates that have already been agreed. Change management, it's our standard template we deploy for this. You can link into these controls. So I'm probably over-egging this particular slide. So I'm passionate about this one. So we'll go to the next slide. Sorry. Right, so one of the nice things obviously to do this, of course, it's about management. We've got these templates to help with the DNS and DHCP. You saw that there. The configuration that I was managing in the Windows environments was copied into the smart architecture model. When that server dies, God help it doesn't, but if it did, it's just a question of building a fresh server, clean server, adding it to the smart architecture. It pushes the configuration. It makes doing DHCP failover a lot easier to manage as well when you just want to upgrade the other pair, or using a master backup where you've got failover channels. You have a lot of options you can use, and it allows you to be more agile as per the bullets there. Thank you. Next slide, please. So I mean, it does sound really easy, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3 as the thing, but it's not. As you all know, anyone who's done a DNS or a DHCP rollout into the environment, it's complex. It's not easy, and you get a lot of heat for the network going down. So having a repeatable process that has the resiliency and the DRBH, BCP built in as part of the deployment process within the solution is, I would hope you think, it's a bit of a bonus, really. Again, it helps with change management. There's the auditing of it as steps are followed through. It's easy to make the changes. So you can automate this. You can drive this via APIs. And you can obviously also take advantage of that in terms of cloud architectures as well. So again, that automation ability to deploy services as much as to manage them is something that you need to take advantage of now in our new world of hybrid environments. Thank you. Next slide, please. So we don't have much time to talk. I think we've got maybe another 5 minutes. So I would normally love to spend a lot more time talking about this, but if we go to the next slide, please. So there's a variety of architectures that are available, but if we can just, we'll take an example of a sort of typical DHCP failover architecture. This is entirely feasible, possible, professional, best practice. Please don't get talked into thinking you need to do more than this. You might want to reassess your risk model first before being talked into having more appliances. This is a solid failover model. It works really well. You tie to the performance required for your environment in a single appliance. And this is what we've been doing a lot as a solution for greenfield customers. This is what they're coming to. So I thought I'd share this with you. I'm not going to read from the slide, but so this is one example of DHCP that we promote. We did this for a service provider in Belgium using IPv6. They love it. Their service never goes down. So it has some legs, as they say. Next slide, please. So I'm very, very passionate about this one, of course, security. If you haven't had a look at this yet, we're really active in your part of the industry. We understand budgets are tight, but there's some very interesting things you could do here that might save you money elsewhere. Having the ability to do transaction inspection of your DNS is a very powerful ability. It does mitigate all the DNS threats that are going right now, hand on heart. We have the behavioral threat detection that will basically deploy adaptive countermeasures. It nails everything. It's job done. It's fire forget. It is definitely worth considering. To give you a feel of how effective we've been at scale, we deployed to 3 mobile, and we reduced their traffic needs by 15%. Regarding their DNS, let alone these various security events that we help them to identify. But you can tune your network and get things in a much better shape and get some observability here that you would not have thought you had before. If we go to the next slide, that's probably a good segue. So when you are detecting these behaviors, bad or nefarious, sometimes it could be misconfiguration as well. You don't necessarily have to take your whole infrastructure down. So this is really fine-tuning your DNS. So the example I did to a talk at InfoSecurity Belgium the other week, we showed a scenario where we discover in the demo command and control tunneling using the DNS protocol. And then what we do is we block that communication going any further from the IP intra-WAN, but we also allow that same device to be able to query the cache for the existing records in the cache. So what that allows that device to do for common stuff that it's doing, the operational stuff, internal DNS records, it's still able to resolve. It doesn't just get, well, you're out. And that can also slow down the kill process, because if there is a client there, a bad client trying to call out, and it loses its connection, but its nasty checker, whatever it is looking at the same time, so if it discovers me ransomware, this device hasn't yet kicked in, it gives you guys that few more minutes as well to go and spot something that's naughty. My favorite there, obviously, you can route to a DNS honeypot. It's kind of fun. You can spoof the records back. For some of you researchers that write your own DNS servers, this is definitely a good project to go for, write a paper about. How are we doing for time? Oh, I better stop. I think we're getting towards the end. So key takeaways, please. Right. So just essentially what we're trying to, sum up here. I mean, it's observability is the thing that we're bringing to the table. The ability to work with that network source of truth, integrate it, rely on it, and then I hope you see the benefits that we've tried to. And it's quite a short talk. I do apologize. So let's jump to the next slides. And thank you very much for those of you that stayed on till the end. If you have any questions, I'll be delighted to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Ed. Currently, we don't have any in the live Q&A, but one thing I was going to ask is, what's been your biggest challenges, or how have you responded probably in the last 12 months? Any sort of sector case studies, if you like, sort of side of it in the education world, if you like?
So there was okay, so not necessarily the educational, but the public sector. Up in Birmingham, a project that had been held back for quite a few years, which was basically us, an us and them scenario, ourselves and another vendor. And as you know, what's been quite hard is obviously that there's been a lot of organizational change over the last 30 years. We've seen it in the military with regiments being crunched into one. We've seen organizations where certainly in the academic sector where there's been mergers, and certainly in the NHS. So here we were in another scenario, like a sort of a Frankenstein organization. They're trying to get hold of their technology, and they went with us, which was really great. Because it's always which one A or B. They were very thorough technically, and they had full confidence of us in our ability to migrate. Because I must give a hat tip to Justin Mitchell from Manchester Metropolitan University, who also gave me the great idea for the demo today. He said he said that our ability to migrate of other platforms into our solution and make sure that service availability, and talking back about our ability to do disaster recovery, business continuity solutions that rely on the DDI component. We're able to do things like overlay and swap out and do stuff seamlessly. Our professional services organization has been doing some really fun work. They've had smiles on their faces recently because some of our customers are now asking us to do things like with Terraform. What can you do to help us with doing cloud automated deployments and those kind of things? So the niche is evolving a lot. Thank you.
Brilliant. I was going to say, we've actually had a question that's come in from George Ross, actually. Sorry, it's a small box here, but I will try and read it out for you if you like. So it's a bit of a niche IPv6 question. Given you have the MAC address, can your system be set up with a template to automatically generate SLAAC style AAA and PTR ?
Well, the short answer is, and I always like to be honest, yes. So I have an understanding of what you said, definitely. In terms of can it do it, I don't know. I haven't done it myself. So we say we're IPv6 ready. I have a slide that would probably say a few things. I have not built it in my own lab, so it's sort of the thing that I'd have to absolutely hand on heart. Please allow me to come back to you with the proper and honest answer to that. Just saying yes, of course it does is not really good enough, and I don't have enough knowledge of IPv6 to give that an honest answer. And I'm not going to fluff you, be straight up. But thank you very much. I would very much, if you could copy that question to me, Paul, and send it to me with the contact details, if that's okay for the person who asked it. I'll be very happy to answer that offline.
Yes,
yeah,
no
I've got
problem
to confess, don't know the answer to that one. Sorry.
Oh, no problem at all. We'll copy that and share with you. And obviously, we want to take this opportunity to sort of say, obviously, you have a stand area and people can drop into that stand area every break and carry on the conversations and obviously arrange a more detailed demo with yourself as well, if they would like to run through. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy. I was quite, I mean, you know, these things, they're a bit stalky, these events, but I was delighted somebody from the community came to talk to me about a project that they could be looking at to take on. So it was a delight just to catch up with them. I haven't spoken to them for, oh gosh, the last time I saw them was about 2.5 years ago. So no, it's really nice to actually see people that normally we don't get the time to. So feel absolutely do come knock on our virtual exhibition door, so to speak. Be delighted to talk to you. Thank you.
We have 5 minutes. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to end on, or any other piece of wisdom or advice, or the challenges around DNS. And I know at the moment, obviously, security is an ever increasing.
Well, yes, I mean,
Talk.
so the recent Forescout paper was an interesting one, because while it wasn't so much impacting us from a DNS server perspective, obviously everyone has DNS clients. And then, of course, DNS clients on an IoT device could well be a scenario. And the paper did. What I just want to sort of share with everyone is, once again, working with the standards bodies, working with those communities, evolving that is normally a much better approach. And actually, that's what Forescout did. The two guys, the chairman of our company, actually clued me up just the other day and said, like, you might want to have a quick read of this. And essentially, an RFC has already been prepared with the recommendations on what to do to resolve this. So I would say to everyone out there who's could be reaching burnout on the security side, do have faith. Things do get improved. Things do move forwards, and don't be shy to reach out for help. I think is the thing right now. It's much better to let everyone know the train is going to crash, rather than saying, I think the train's crashed. So, reach out for support. It's a community as much as we're there's business to it. We're all in just to do the best we possibly can. And we're not just here to sell you goods. If you want, there was a gentleman in Dublin I was helping talk to. Dare I say, I recommended he grab this book. Actually, very much recommended too, which is Open Source Intelligence Techniques. And it tells you how to basically build out your own open source resources. How would this be cool? So like in our solution that has DNS RPZs, which are response policy zones, you can build out your own URL data, push that into our RPZ. You don't have to go out and buy feeds. Feeds can be expensive. Also, the ability to create other parts of intelligence in the organization. Sometimes we don't have the full budgets for a SOC, or somebody saying like, we can't afford a SOC, we've got to outsource a SOC. Well, before all of that, try and get some time to do that. That's maybe one thing I could share.
Ed, we've had one. We've probably got one time for Matt Cook has just dropped in a question for us. Same sort of IPv question around the integration and reporting stroke audit for needing to support both SLA-AC and DHCP6 due to the need to handle the issues most Android handsets have with DHCP6 not being supported. A white paper around best practice in the face of HEFE sector requirements for control audit would be interesting.
I think you've nailed that for us. Thank you very much. Please, also, Paul, please do copy that one. Send it to me. Yes. So, hang on. I've got somebody pinging me. I need to kill my notifications. I absolutely concur. So we can do quite a bit already in terms of supporting a lot of the standards you'd see in ISC's DHCP v6. We're kind of a wrap around that, kind of make it look nice and easy to work with that. So if you've been already doing any kind of sort of pilots that uses that engine, then it's going to be a big yes in terms of configurations you've been able to achieve. One of the things I think there's one thing that is kind of frustrating that I haven't really been able to figure out, and I'd be interested to hear from the community about. And of course, that is the randomization of MAC addressing is becoming a popular theme now on iOS and Android handsets. And again, I mean, we've got to probably innovate on this, or do we just have to let it go? I mean, there's other kind of fingerprinting we can do. Of course, there's behavioral fingerprinting that we may be able to do in due course. There's a lot of fun going on in the industry around the buzzwords of AI and ML, but the smarter pattern analysis, be what it may. I mean, we've seen some good stuff for like the plugin in Zeek, which does inference of misuse of SSH without being able to actually decrypt the packets just by the behavior that's taking place. Things like that are quite cool. So, but it doesn't really solve the problem now. But for the DHCP v6, in terms of a campus site, yes, I would suspect. But again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. The caveat, it's not my strong point. I'm very much rather throw that back to my guys to give you a much more solid answer as to what we're doing on it, and with some examples, of course, of where we've done it before.
Cool. And I was just like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you, Ed, and thanks for taking the time to present to us today. And as mentioned before, if you want to carry on any conversation, please do go along to the stand and carry on those conversations. And thank you again.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye-bye.